Is Kathleen Kennedy one out at Lucasfilm? Welcome back to Views with Hughes, your agenda-free news. This is Jerome Hughes. Now, let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, I'm either going crazy or it seems Kathleen Kennedy just might finally have something in common with a large portion of the Star Wars fan base, okay, where she too, Kathleen Kennedy, wants to leave Lucasfilm. However, according to Chris Gore from Film Thread, there's a major stipulation attached to her departure where Kathleen Kennedy is only willing to help or willing to step down if she exits on the heels of massive success, both critically and commercially. You see, now that's a tall order considering that Lucasfilm hasn't even had anything close to a major hit in years. And all of this is coming from thatpoppics.com. I had the article linked below. But since Disney's acquisition of Lucasfilm in 2012, Kathleen Kennedy has been at the helm of guiding the company's direction. And back then, as a longtime associate of George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, Kathleen Kennedy claimed to have made a promise to George Lucas that she would take care of this life's work, Star Wars. But let's face it, Kathleen Kennedy done the exact opposite, okay? But under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership and her watching stuff, the Star Wars franchise has shifted from being the most beloved and enduring intellectual property of all time to becoming a frequent target of criticism and ridicule from YouTubers and streamers across the globe. Now, let's be honest here. Let's be real honest here. One of the most glaring examples of her mismanagement is the Star Wars sequel trilogy. See, it's a divisive series that saw the dismantling and eventual death of iconic characters like Han Solo and even Luke Skywalker, all the while promoting a younger, more diverse cast that failed to resonate with the core fan base. And then there was also Solo, Star Wars story, which holds the crazy distinction of being the first Star Wars movie to lose money at the box office. Now, that was a shocking outcome for the franchise that once seemed invincible, but the damage doesn't even stop there. See, under Kathleen Kennedy's supervision, Star Wars has also delivered, a string of critical and commercial failures on Disney Plus, including Disney Star Wars: Acolyte, Ahsoka, Kenobi, Book of Boba Fett, and these projects have only further demonstrated how far, Star Wars has fallen from its once dominant position as a powerhouse sci-fi franchise. But with every failed project and every high-profile announcement that ends up going nowhere, Star Wars fans around the world are left asking the same burning questions. When will Kathleen Kennedy finally leave Star Wars? Why hasn't Kathleen Kennedy been fired yet? Or how is it that Kathleen Kennedy is still holding on to a job? Now, I know I made different videos in the past with these speculations, but according to Chris Gore from Film Thread, who shared this information on a recent episode of the Pro Show with WDW Pro, Kathleen Kennedy actually does want to leave Lucasfilm, but she only wants to do it under specific circumstances. Where Chris Gore was actually quoted saying, "We've been hearing that Kathleen Kennedy is not very hands-on in Star Wars at this point," said WDW Pro during the show. And Pro asked him, "Are you hearing anything similar that Kathleen Kennedy might be just holding on to the title, at least for now?" And that's when Chris Gore confirmed the following, provided even more insight, where Chris Gore said Kathleen Kennedy wants to retire and leave, but she wants to do that on a win. But in other words, Kathleen Kennedy is looking to retire with a massive success, a blockbuster hit that she can point to as her crowning achievement. Whether it's a smash hit TV series or a major box office success with the theatrical release, and Kathleen Kennedy's aiming to go out on a high note, much like George Costanza did on Seinfeld. And that's saying a lot right there. But Chris Gore was quoted again that she was waiting to go out on a big win, and she hasn't done one, and that's actually true. It stands to reason that Kathleen Kennedy would be considering retirement at this stage of her life, her career. Well, she's 71 years old and enjoyed a long career in Hollywood marked by significant achievements, according to some. But however, if her recent track record is any indication of what the studio under her leadership is capable of producing, then Star Wars fans might be stuck with Kathleen Kennedy for a while longer. Now, prime example. The Acolyte. Okay, take that for instance, the series that had an atrocious showing on Disney Plus, where the audience scores of Rotten Tomatoes plummeted as low as 13% during the Acolyte's initial run, where it's currently sitting at 17%. And the Acolyte also vanished from the Nielsen top 10 streaming shows after just 4 episodes. Okay, and added to this particular embarrassment, at thatpoppers.com with John Trent. He pointed out that the Leslie Headland-led live-action series, The Acolyte, lost a staggering 75% of the Star Wars audience that tuned in for the season 2 finale of The Mandalorian. And this type of performance is actually far from the win that Kathleen Kennedy is actually looking for. But that's not even a half of it. You see, Kathleen Kennedy has also announced a slew of the Star Wars projects that never materialized, actually leaving more people frustrated and diminishing the brand's credibility for Star Wars. And this includes a trilogy by The Last Jedi director Rian Johnson, a Rogue Squadron movie by Wonder Woman director Patty Jenkins, a film by Marvel Studios under Kevin Feige, and yet another project by Game of Thrones showrunners David Benioff and Dan West. Each of these high-profile projects generated considerable buzz only to be quietly shelved, leaving fans disappointed, well, Disney Shield fans disappointed and questioning the direction of the franchise under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership. But with the current contract of Kathleen Kennedy reportedly set to expire in October, it will be interesting to see if Disney chooses to renew her contract, or if Lucasfilm might finally be searching for another new studio head who can actually restore the franchise to its former glory. And if I was the studio as well as Bob Iger, I'd hold their breath. But isn't that something? You know, Kathleen Kennedy wants out, but only if she can leave with the win. It's almost ironic considering how long Star Wars fans have been waiting for one under the Kathleen Kennedy leadership. For someone who's led the franchise into a series of flops, this sudden desire for success from Kathleen Kennedy feels a bit like trying to rewrite history at the last minute. But given the current state of Lucasfilm under Kathleen Kennedy, you know, the chances of Kathleen Kennedy pulling off this grand exit seems slim at best. The last few years have been nothing but, you know, a string of disappointments. The idea that Kathleen Kennedy will suddenly turn things around now feels more like wishful thinking than an actual realistic goal. And you know what? This is where the frustration really hits home for Star Wars fans. See, Kathleen Kennedy was supposed to be the steward of George Lucas's legacy, but instead, Kathleen Kennedy took it in a direction that's alienated a huge portion of the fan base itself. And it's not just about bad movies or shows, it's about breaking a promise to the very man who created the galaxy far, far away, and that being George Lucas. But you know what? When you think about where Star Wars used to be, which was a beloved franchise that brought people together, it's almost tragic to see what it's become. And under Kathleen Kennedy, it's gone from a cultural icon to something that people laugh at and criticize daily. And this fall from grace didn't happen overnight, you know. It's a direct result of decisions made on the watch of Kathleen Kennedy. All right. Now, the Disney Star Wars sequel trilogy is probably the most painful chapter for a lot of longtime fans. Matter of fact, all the longtime fans. The way Kathleen Kennedy handled classic characters like Han Solo and Luke Skywalker was nothing short of disrespectful. And while diversity in casting was important, it just shouldn't come at the expense of good storytelling. But unfortunately, that's exactly what happened under Kathleen Kennedy and her leadership. And the fans have never forgotten about it. A lot of them still haven't forgiven her for it. And this is a wake-up call for anyone who still defends Disney Star Wars under Kathleen Kennedy. If you can't even break even with the Star Wars movie, something has gone terribly wrong. Now, the fact that this happened under Kathleen Kennedy is yet another black mark on her record, okay? And none of this would be a surprise to many of us, but the revelation that Kathleen Kennedy wants to leave but is holding out for a big win is almost laughable. Now, after everything that's happened under her leadership, the idea that Kathleen Kennedy is waiting for a triumphant exit feels like she's out of touch with the reality of the situation. But you know what? At 71, most people would be looking at retirement, especially after a long career as long as Kathleen Kennedy. But, you know, given her recent failures, it's hard to not wonder if Kathleen Kennedy is actually holding on to just a bit too long. If Kathleen Kennedy is, you know, waiting for a win that never comes, Star Wars fans might be in for more of the same disappointing content for the foreseeable future itself. And let's not forget the Acolyte from Kathleen Kennedy is just one more example that a project that had potential that but ended up being a disaster. Those audience scores from Rotten Tomatoes are a clear signal that fans are fed up, and the fact that the show lost so much of its viewership compared to The Mandalorian is telling. Now, if Kathleen Kennedy was hoping for a big win here, then must be sorely disappointed. So, what do you think? Will Kathleen Kennedy actually be, stick around until she finally lands that long-awaited big win, or will Disney force her to move on in come October? I actually doubt it, but hey, let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. Also, be sure to include any additional details you might have in this particular topic. If you enjoyed what I shared in this video, go ahead and smash like button, share far wide across social media. And if you haven't done so already, and you enjoyed all the content that I put out there, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, click the bell notification so that way you'll be notified of future uploads and updates. Till then, peace.